Another meeting of the Empowerment Congress Government Reform and Accountability Working Group. We are pleased to have each of you here this evening for what promises to be a very informative and lively discussion we have scheduled for this evening. For those of you who are new to the Empowerment Congress, this is a working group of members who are interested in obtaining information for the purpose of uh, pursuing informed public policy discourse and for obtaining opportunities to engage in the effort to influence the political process uh, beyond just elections, but also encompassing efforts to improve the quality of life and standard of living of uh, our the folks in our communities as well as ourselves. We have a special guest this evening who will be discussing some of the recent polling associated with Proposition 50, the measure that's on the ballot in the special election that is next month on Tuesday, November the 4th. In addition to our special guest, we'll be talking a little bit about what's going on with regard to the Voting Rights Act, some of the efforts that have been underway over the past week to organize mass uh, participation in the process to influence how uh, government is being reformed at the federal level and some of the basis for opposition to it. And then finally, we're going to have a conversation about the Empowerment Congress's 2026 annual summit, which is scheduled for January 17th in 2026, that will feature a forum for candidates who are running for California governor. So we've got a busy agenda. We will also encompass at least two requests for your assistance as we proceed. And hopefully you will find it in your hearts and minds to help us formulate questions and under the various topics that we expect will be asked of the gubernatorial candidates come January. So that's an ambitious agenda to be sure. Let me just indicate shortly what the purpose of our meeting is. We want to provide important updates on the status of the Voting Rights Act, as well as Proposition 50 and what seems to be happening in the electorate in California. Additionally, we will shortly recap the No Kings protest that occurred this past Saturday, some 300 events in California, probably a dozen in the greater Los Angeles area alone, not including the one that was pretty big downtown. So with that, why don't we briefly, maybe for the next 5 minutes, get as many self-introductions as possible with the idea that you will all each briefly state your name and what organizational affiliation you may have and why you are at the meeting before passing it off to someone else. I'm going to start.
Just glad y'all are here and continue the energy. The No Kings protests, the numbers says that there was 7 million people across the country who showed up. And so we're doing civic engagement and empowerment. I'm glad you are here. Prop 50 is very, very important for what we are doing. I just last week had a meeting with Jasmine Crockett through the LA Focus and talked about the importance of all of us getting involved with Prop 50 and what's going on in Texas and what's going on with the Voting Rights Act is all connected together. And so you're in the right space at the right time for an important conversation. And I'll pass it over to MRT, one who's no stranger to civic engagement, making sure that you're loud and correct with data. MRT.
Thanks very much, Pastor Eddie. Vincent, thank you both for co-chairing and leading the effort for government reform and accountability for the Empowerment Congress. Delighted to have the opportunity to introduce, if we were at the First New Christian Church, we'd say introduce to some and present to others.
All right.
The one and only Dr. Shakari Byerly, longtime colleague. We subscribe to the very notion, don't get mad, get data. And she has plenty of it. She's trained as an undergrad at Dartmouth, moved all the way through to the University California, Los Angeles.
I'm sorry, where was that?
Nowhere that's going to be repeated by me at this moment. Thank you. Any more interruptions will be warranting a lot of therapy for you. Thank you. As in physical therapy. Dr. Byerly, PhD in political science with a focus on polling research and statistics and the range of complementary disciplines. We go back to a time when both Vincent and I had the good fortune of having a part of our team in Sacramento, and we have maintained a solid relationship since that time. The work that you know that we did during the African American voter registration, education, and participation project, Shakari was our go-to pollster. And she is the managing partner of Eviderus, her own company that does survey work, research, polling with her co-conspirator, better known as her husband, Rodrigo Byerly. And they are a formidable team. We're very proud of what they have been able to accomplish, as we used to describe as a DBE. Don't know what we're just calling it now, but I know one thing: they do mighty good work. And so with that in mind, we're delighted to have them here with us tonight to make a presentation on the work surrounding Prop 50 and more. I present now Dr. Shakari Byerly.
Thank you, good sir, good doctor, for that gracious introduction. And I like to say, yes, I hail from the big green, Dartmouth. It is just to situate myself, if you will, in this moment. It was the last Ivy League to go co-ed. So to be a woman of Dartmouth is saying something, if I may. And it is also the home of the Dartmouth Review, which is the parent of the National Review. So I have, both Rodrigo and I are graduates of Dartmouth. We have been in the belly of the beast and cut our teeth in that context. So this moment is no surprise to us. And as I bring my remarks, I first want to thank Dr. Ridley Thomas, Vincent, and the Empowerment Congress just for this space and this forum. I am home, and I want to thank you all for the audience, and I look forward to the robust discussion. Rodrigo could not join us tonight, but he is with us in spirit. I want to say something that's a bit oxymoronic, if you will, and just to put some historical handles, if you will, around this moment, we know that our democracy is young. We have only attempted and put our hand to the actual work of democracy since the modern civil rights movement. And so we are, dare I say, 50 years, a little more in to having the start of a multiracial democracy. And we know that those efforts were stunted by the politics of assassination. And that includes the murder of Emmett Till in 1954 and the assassination of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King in the early 60s. So this moment is nothing new. We have been here before, and in many parts of our country, Mississippi, we have always been in dire straits. However, what I would propose to you that although democracy is indeed on the line with this current administration, we are in a period of racial retrenchment, if you will, from white supremacist, anti-democratic forces and the prevailing regime before the modern day civil rights movement. Democracy is on the line, but it's not on the ropes. That may seem a bit contradictory or oxymoronic to some, but what I would posit to you is it's important to understand our power. And just to bring some data to it, when we look at the attitudes nationally as it relates to redistricting, and particularly this current mid-cycle redistricting that has been sanctioned by the Trump administration, the majority of voters nationwide, 55% majority, oppose partisan redistricting in the fashion that the president is pushing for, and in Texas has advocated. Secondly, we want to make no mistake that this is indeed a period of racial retrogression, specifically as it relates to an attack on Black power. When we look at the districts in Texas, specifically that the Republicans have redrawn, the 5 districts are designed explicitly to pack and crack Black representation. And the strategy that they are using is divide and conquer minority populations, namely eliminating 2 what we call coalition districts that are represented by Black elected officials and turning them into majority Latino districts with mixed partisan affiliation and really more white voters. But the message on the ground in Texas, where Viteris also has a presence, is that this is about Latino empowerment. And we see some of that rhetoric also as it relates to Prop 50. We look at the data, Latino community is less informed than the Black community is around Prop 50, although the polling was done in late September, and it seems like we're, a lifetime since just 2 weeks ago. But there is more division in that community, partly due to acculturation, less partisan attachment, a younger electorate relative to the Black community. But make no mistake, we can see with the mass deportations and the federal government's attempts to send ICE into our communities, into Los Angeles, this effort, be it in Texas or in California, is no friend of any of us. And there is a multiracial coalition that has come together to support Prop 50 and to raise our voices legally through LDF, the Legal Defense Fund, and NAACP nationally to argue these issues before the court. So what does that mean for polling in California, specifically as it relates to Proposition 50? The good news, I think there was a report out today that the yes side is indeed outspending the no side. And that makes a significant difference. The Cook Political Report produced a few days ago some data that indicated that Prop 50 has a 50% majority support as it relates to the yes vote and a 36% no vote. I'm sorry, 35% opposed with 15% undecided. So that's good news, but we need a stronger majority actually to win. So this is going to be about turnout. Even when we stratify those results by those who have seen campaign advertising, particularly for the yes vote, we see those numbers rise even higher. There was a poll a couple of weeks ago, this time done, the Cook Report is nonpartisan, but there was another poll done actually by a Republican-leaning firm, Coefficient Research, that showed similar results. They had Prop 50 at a 56% yes, and the no vote at about 39% after hearing campaign arguments, both in favor and opposed. And so the fact that the yes vote advertising is getting out and in the atmosphere at a higher degree because they are funded is good news. But this is a long election. So ballots have gone out. People are voting now. But there's still time to turn people out. As it relates to Black voters, Viteris was commissioned to conduct some research by Black PAC. They have not officially released that publicly, but I can talk in generalities about support among Black voters. I'll first say I want to give a shout out to AVREP and their investment in research among our community, because it's critical to control and to tell our own story, and we cannot do that without data. So the work that Black PAC has done in their research really builds on the surveys that AVREP has been conducting since 2016. They're the only source of data on Black public opinion longitudinally. And so this really builds on a foundation. And so what do we know from that research? The good news is Prop 50 enjoys a high degree of qualified support. Now, what do I mean by that? We have over 63% of Black voters that are saying that they would vote yes. Either they're committed or they're leaning, even if they're undecided, toward voting yes. I say it's qualified because we have a 51% committed, definitely yes, among Black voters, but it's important to get over the finish line in higher proportion. So we estimate that support in the Black community, when you look at over the course of our survey, we expose people to both positive arguments and opposition arguments around Prop 50. 45% consistently vote yes each time we ask the question. So although the initial vote, we have majority support, there's some fluidity there. People can fluctuate depending on what type of information they receive and who asks them to get out to vote. We know that research, social science research suggests that when you ask someone to vote, they're actually more likely to turn out. And this is particularly important for our younger voters, those that are under 40. They want to be asked. They want to get a phone call. They want to hear a door knock, actually providing them with some information, educating them, and inviting them to participate. And that's why it's important to have mobilization dollars in our community to turn out voters. But if we're going to actually realize the top of support, which we estimate to be around 63% yes among Black voters, we have to mobilize. So our support roughly is at the low end, 45%, and at the high end, about 65%, depending on what kind of information they receive. And we know from our data that what people hear matters, because when we simply present the positive information first, we get a 10-point jump in our support over and above those who hear the negatives first. And in this environment, particularly with the opposition employing a divide and conquer strategy and mobilizing no voters and low, what we call, opportunity voters or lower propensity voters, we can easily see the support among the Black electorate slip. So when we look at those that are more likely to be undecided or who flip between being a lean toward yes, a lean toward no, or I'm going to skip it altogether, those are voters who are likely to be under 40 or brothers, men between the ages of 35 and 54, so our kind of Gen X men, if you will, and voters who did not participate in the last special election, which is the recall. It really makes a difference who gets to them. Because when we measure motivation to vote, so how excited are you and motivated are you to participate in the special election with Prop 50, we know that if people hear the negatives first, the no voters are actually more likely to mobilize. And so this is not just about getting to yes, it's making sure that we invite people to turn out, that we educate them on what the implications of the measure is, and then we get to them first, because if they get negative information, their motivation actually goes up as well, and they're inclined to vote no. So if they hear from us, they hear from the yes vote, and I know this is a nonpartisan group, but talking about the yes vote, it makes a difference if they hear that positive information first. Now, you might be asking, well, what resonates? We have several segments of voters. And when we step back from Prop 50 and we begin to think about some of the audience segmentation that's been done among Black voters, we have roughly about 4 categories. We have our legacy, what we call legacy civil rights voters, who are both boomers and members of Generation X who were brought up in the culture of the civil rights movement and Black history. For those voters, the fact that democracy is on the ballot, that it's important for California to take a stand, that mobilizes them. So when we look at our other segments, namely what we call our secular legacy civil rights voters, it's a mix not only of democracy being on the ballot and a matter of principle, but it's also an issue of how does this measure connect with Black representation and Black political power. So these are people that are outside of our faith communities, for example, and not necessarily steeped in that tradition. The leaning into the cultural and the ethno-racial dimension of the measure makes a difference. That's even more so for our third segment, which we call our less engaged millennials. They vote some of the time, but not all of the time. And they are even more strongly mobilized, less about democracy and civil rights issues in general. And
my audio, how this measure explicitly is going to impact Black representation. Namely, the fact that the districts in Texas that this is designed to combat are direct assaults on Black political power and Black elected representatives, combined with the fact that this measure is important because the Texas districts actually crack and pack and marginalize Black voters. So one message is about political power and our elected representatives being given the dignity and respect that they should be afforded. And the second message is specifically about Black voters and their ability to elect representatives that represent them, and the concept of every vote being counted and not not marginalized. Our other segments of the electorate are really about those that are more cynical about the political process. And those segments tend to also be younger and also more male. And these are individuals that are less socially connected. So not only are they more secular, but they're also less likely to be involved in our civic activities that we might have, whether it's participating in forums like the Empowerment Congress or being connected to PTAs or some of our neighborhood associations. These are segments that have been left behind by opportunity. This is our hardest, what we call group, with the most opportunity, but also the hardest to compel because they've been left behind by many of the gains that we've seen as it relates to education, as it relates to community safety, and the partisan messaging in particular, and some of the cultural messaging does not resonate as well. These are the voters that are more open to mobilization by the other side, but not exclusively. So tapping in and making the connection to how this is going to impact the bottom line, particularly the issues related to housing affordability, the ability to find and keep a stable job, is going to be important. The ability to find housing, those opportunity issues, the questions need to be answered about how democracy is going to deliver. So yes, democracy is on the line, but if democracy is not delivering for me, then why should I care about democracy? And so we have to be willing to make that case. I'm going to end my remarks now because I do want to have time for questions, comments, discussion on some of the information that I've presented. I want to thank you all very much for your time and attention.
All right, Shakari, thank you very much. I'm going to ask if there are any questions from the group, starting with Pastor Eddie and Reverend Johnson and Reverend Mosley. Dr. Ridley Thomas, any questions?
First of all, thank you, Dr. Byerly. Secondly, I want to just ask the question if there were a key message point that had to be delivered to those who were inclined to be yes but are undecided. What is that message? And I'd also like people to hear what's the most compelling message against Prop 50 that seems to get the attention of prospective voters.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Dr. Ridley Thomas. It's really the message that's related to the attack on Black political power. The fact that Black districts have been redrawn to dilute the voting power of Black voters. And namely, the factoid, if you will, that Black voters in Texas are now only worth 1/5 of the representation of a white voter.
Mm.
1/5. And if that sounds familiar,
Yeah,
we think about the 3/5 compromise.
it's less.
That gets people's attention.
Okay.
When we talk about the no side, it's really about number one for our higher kind of our middling those secular um, legacy voters, if you will, it's the fact that the two things. The governor is uh, spending a lot of money on an expensive election that is discounting the will of the people to have independent, nonpartisan redistricting. So this is not fair. Two wrongs don't make it right. The other side of that, particularly for um, our voters that are not mobilized but have the potential to be mobilized. And this is, I'm going to ask to keep some of this off the record, although I think I've said it publicly in other forums and to a person's face, if you will. There is a tension in the survey results among Black voters between the imperative of fighting the Trump administration, and particularly the attack on or the erasure of Black history and the contributions of Black Americans, immigration, even. People are believe that it's wrong and it's unfair. At 80% are highly concerned. Black voters are highly concerned about what's happening as it relates to immigration. And I will say 1 in 5, nearly 1 in 5 Black voters are Black immigrants, either first, second, or third generation. So we have to tell our own story and the fact that we care about immigration as well as the erasure of our contributions more broadly. But for those voters, the tension, and the tension is for everybody, but it's a showstopper, if you will, for these people who turn out less often, is that the governor does not have a strong track record with Black voters. So when we ask about the governor's approval rating in general, we get about 7 in 10 that have a favorable opinion. But when we ask specifically, how would you rate the governor's performance as it relates to advancing the interests of Black Californians? You have 55% that say he's doing either a job that's poor or only
Mm,
fair.
mm,
Mm.
55%.
mm,
And so when you brand this as Governor Newsom's initiative,
mm.
that becomes problematic and has the potential to have a demobilizing effect. And so again, it's really important to lead with those cultural messages that resonate with that group. Keep the focus on Black political power. And yes, it's about Trump, but we have to have a proactive message that's pointed toward the future in terms of building and leveraging Black political power. We can't turn back from that. So yes, it's about Trump, but it's about a positive story about Black empowerment.
Pastor Eddie.
Thank you.
Uh, Dr. Byerly, thank you for being here tonight. Um, there's a rumor that I would like for you to maybe help with the data clear up that the redistricting in California will dilute Black power and Black elected power in congressional seats. My read of the data says that's not going to happen, but there's a rumor that that could happen. So I'd love for you to speak to that and what you see in the data. And then the other is just around uh, the Voting Rights Act. You talked about the legacy and people who are people of faith or secular. And there's currently a court case before the Supreme Court. And I know there are litigation in Texas as well. So what is at stake statistically? I mean, there's one fifth in Texas. There's a Black board, one fifth a person in Texas. Are we at risk of seeing something similar across the nation if we don't balance the scales a little bit?
We are absolutely at risk. Just let that rest. The urgency cannot be understated. The current administration has taken a no holds barred approach to advancing their agenda, which is anti-Black, anti-Latino, in particular, and with specificity. Many of the opportunity districts, not only in Texas, but in Missouri, for example, where there was also a redistricting, which is currently under litigation, are there because of the Voting Rights Act, because of those civil rights protections. And so if we lose those protections by virtue of, the Supreme Court rulings on these critical cases, it will take quite a bit to rebuild, and the consequences are dire. We will be losing Black representation. Now, to your other question regarding the message that California's new districts actually dilute Black voting power, we actually tested that message, and it has, far, far less intense degree of resonance than the messages in favor. And specifically, we tested measured redraws the congressional district in a way that dilutes Black voting power, making it more difficult to elect Black voters, for Black voters to elect representatives of their choosing. We have about 18% who find that very convincing, but nearly a full 2 in 5, or 37%, who find it at least somewhat convincing. And so we can't take anything for granted, because it does resonate with some voters, particularly those marginal voters that I talked about, those secular voters that I talked about, those younger voters and people who have been left behind and aren't being spoken to about where opportunity is going to come from. It resonates. Now, where's the fallacy in that? The districts, we have 3 Black congressional representatives that come from California. None of those seats are in jeopardy. Sidney Kamlager, Latifah Simon, Maxine Waters. They are in what we call safe districts. So there is it would take something monumental for them not to win their elections. They are in safe districts. However, we're spiritual people here, right? So the Satan's strategy was just to have a little untruth, right? He didn't tell a whole lie. He just told part of a lie. So part of the creation of the new districts and making the districts that are currently held by a Republican or who have a lower Democratic vote share, making them more Democratic, it's drawing some Black voters into those districts so that Democrats have a higher opportunity to be successful. So it takes them out of, districts where Black voters might have more power, but they're still safely Democratic. And it puts those voters in districts that previously were more Republican. So in that way, you might say, well, Black voters are being moved out of their elected representatives district, or a district that might likely elect an African American or a Black representative. I think one of the districts up north, that may be the case, but those districts are not at risk. When you look at what we call racially polarized voting, which is the test that is a part of the Voting Rights Act about whether communities of interest can elect their candidates of choice, Black voters vote Democratic when they vote. And Black voters are actually less likely to be racially polarized relative to some other groups, because we will vote for a white candidate when the white candidate represents our interests, and we will vote against a Black candidate who does not represent the mainstream of our community. And so, an example, we love Ketanji Brown. We feel a little differently about Clarence Thomas, right? So I think that's important to keep in mind.
I think it's also interesting, just as a sort of a historical note, that California, in California, African Americans have a pretty long legacy of building coalitions, electoral coalitions, to elect to office African Americans who don't have large Black constituencies. And if you look at the Legislative Black Caucus right now, I know it's not a congressional, there aren't congressional seats, but there are a number of African Americans who are members of the Legislative Black Caucus whose district profiles suggest that they probably shouldn't be elected based on the percentage of African Americans in their districts. Folks need to be reminded, for example, that Mervyn Dimely got himself elected to lieutenant governor in the 1970s in a state that at that time might have been 15% Black. Uh, Likewise, Willie Brown, who served as Speaker in the California State Assembly, represented a district that probably had 10% Black people for the duration of his career. So there's a legacy of electoral coalition building that extends beyond the African American community. But what also is significant is they needed a base of support, and a base of support that was capable of overperforming at the polls, meaning that they voted in excess of their percentage of the electorate. And what I think I hear you saying is that as the lower propensity, uninspired voters in the younger demographic become a larger percentage of the total voting population of African Americans, we are not performing as highly at the polls as we used to. And that weakens our power. So it's incumbent upon older voters, the parents and grandparents of these young people, to try to motivate them to go to the polls and to understand that while they may not see a direct benefit to their participation, under Trump, if they qualify for Medicaid or for an Affordable Care Act policy, or if they have student loans they have to pay, they're taking a significant hit because Trump is wiping out those subsidies, is reducing Medicaid, and is increasing the amount of money that students have to repay if they have accumulated debt. So I just wanted to sort of punctuate the points that both you and Pastor Eddie were making with those observations, and perhaps that could be a subject for conversation in this forum at some point in the future.
Yeah,
Are there
thank
any
you. One thing I want to add to that, Vincent, is we have to think about being innovative with engaging those lower propensity segments. And many times, we talk at folks as opposed to listening first and letting them drive a bit of the conversation.
Mhm.
When we've done focus groups among younger segments and, lower propensity voters and those that are more open to some of the messages from the opposition, so to speak, we have not, people don't have productive relationships where they feel like people are really listening to them, as opposed to imposing their view and what's important to them onto the person that they're trying to mobilize. So it's really important to listen to what's important to them And, maybe you'll swing them your way, maybe you won't, but we have to start having more productive conversations that center those folks that feel like democracy is not delivering for them.
Yes.
Just a couple of other examples. Thanks for that, Dr. Byerly. But quickly, um, uh, a few more illustrations undergirding Vincent's point would be relevant, and they come closer to home. When you think about the election of Tom Bradley, it was straight coalition politics that delivered his mayoralty in 1973, right? And it held for 20 years, up until the point where the population of the city of Los Angeles was scarcely 15%. Now, scarcely 10%. You need to think about, from a congressional basis, Julian Dixon, followed by Diane Watson, followed by Karen Bass, now Sidney Kamlager, Dove. Coalition districts to be sure. Some would argue the quintessential coalition district in the state of California. And so I think these names and so forth um, um, are familiar to many of us as we work with them, and certainly know at least three of them who are still with us, and their stories to capture the seats that they did purely straight ahead coalition politics, undeniably so.
Are there any additional questions before Shakari, before we lose her, but hopefully get her back in the not too distant future? Joanne?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this session. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. And I'll be back to listen to some more because government is so crucial right now. Yeah. So thank you.
Hello, Dr. Shakari. Good to see you. Sorry you can't see me. My question, I put it in the chat, but you were talking about positive messaging. And as nonprofits, we can't tell them how to vote. And we have to be really ginger when we're explaining why this is up for vote. And the only thing that I found that kind of clues them in with a little positive power is Cal Matters. Is there anything else that we can use? Because I'm started doing our voter education campaign like 2 weeks ago. So I'm looking up fresh and recycling. But I heard what you said about getting out the positive message because our thing says, give your permission. Because the other thing is they're like, well, they're just telling us what to do and they want to override our authority. So I'm asking, on November 4th, give California your permission, but I want something to back it up with.
Yeah, I love that, and it really dovetails well with one of the messages that we tested. It didn't end up being the highest testing message, but it still resonated very well with the majority of voters, which is this Prop 50 actually asked the voters to decide, which is in contrast to what's going on in other places around the country. I placed in the chat, but I'll just also, into everyone's hearing, recommend turning to Black Pack, which sponsored our research. I believe that they have folks on hand or in coalition with the Black Power Network, for example, and Lene Norwood and associates who are leveraging that data to put together talking points. And so I'm happy to connect you with Black Pack. Also, the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute, which is led by Kelly Todd Griffin. She has been on a roadshow, so to speak, with nonpartisan information about Proposition 50. And so also happy to connect you with her work. She's out of the Cal State Dominguez Hills. That's where her institute is located. And I also believe that Black Women for Wellness have a PAC, a 501c4, and they typically put out a voter guide. I don't know if they have put out a voter guide for this special election.
Now, I haven't seen it because I usually use theirs. And Kelly presented to us at Chrysler last week. So, yes. So, thank you for the additional information and blessings to you.
All right, Dor-
Election Central, Vincent, in the chat for everyone's youth. Dorsey, go there, and it's current and will be updated.
right.
And for anyone who wants to come to an event in person, this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. in Leimert Park, there will be a rally for the Black community, featuring all of your Black elected officials. Congresswoman Dove, Senator Lowell Smoke Cuevas, State Senator Laura Richardson, Assembly Member Mike Gibson, Assembly Member Tina McKenna, Isaac Bryan, your school board member, Charlotte, the City Council, Kerwin Price, Marquise Harris Dawson, Heather Hutt, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, and Assembly Member Sade Alware. So this Saturday at 9:30 in Leimert Park.
If there is information about events that are coming up, please feel free to drop any digital links into the chat. Dorsey and then Anya.
Thank you, Doctor. I've just been so fascinated by this conversation. I'm really concerned about the young people that are left behind. And I'm involved with music, and it just seems to me, how do we reach them? And it's almost as if we have to put together something that has to do with music, that maybe rapping and storytelling at the same time, poetry, something that they would listen to. Do you think that that's a direction? Or I hope I'm not sounding ridiculous, but I just want to have an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly in our environment, our current media and news and information landscape, there is an increase in misinformation and distrust of information. So people are looking in what we might think of as non-traditional ways to get their information, and often it's non-political actors. So using art, using music, using sports play and movement to talk about being civically engaged and having a voice and participating civically. I think those are wonderful ways of getting that message out, because it comes across as more authentic. You don't have anything politically at stake. You're not on a particular team, so to speak. You can use arts, culture, music, sports, and movement to reach people in ways that otherwise you would not be able to.
Thank you.
Anya?
Hi, Dr. Byerly. Thank you so much for the information that was shared. I did miss a lot of the beginning, so I hope my question, you may have already answered this, but I heard you say that the young, I too have a concern about the young people. And I heard you say that they are not necessarily motivated or trusting of democracy. And I wanted to clarify, like, is it democracy itself, or is it the Democrats or the Democratic Party? Because obviously Trump was able to, kind of make some headway on the Republican side. So with those votes. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I would say it's a bit of both. Democracy as a talking point is not meaningful for those who may not talk about politics or pay attention to it every day, right? They're struggling and they're, maybe successfully making ends meet. They're taking care of their families. They're working. or they're being productive in their communities in other ways. So they're not thinking about politics all the time. So democracy's on the line and we have to stand up for democracy. What does that really mean on the ground to
Okay.
people's everyday lives? However, the other side of it is the partisan piece. What are Democrats are just anti-Trump and that's it, right? They're not speaking my language. I don't have a connection with them. My mother, my grandmother votes all the time just because that's what they do, but that doesn't have any relevance for my life. And they're not people like me, right? We saw that with Vice President Harris. Who is she? Is she black? Is she not? Is she real? Is she,
Right.
just trying to gain? There's no relationship there. And so what Republicans have been able to successfully do is use non-traditional channels, podcasts where people are listening to influencers or people
Right.
who
That's it.
are like them in some
Yeah,
ways,
exactly.
right? People like them, they have a listening relationship. They're not necessarily political, right? And so they don't have anything at stake on the
Right.
surface, right?
Mhm.
We know that there is a strategic effort to place these influencers in certain positions with certain content that is a backdoor. But for the person who is not following things every day, they are looking to non-traditional sources of information, searching, scouring for people who are like them. And whatever that means, people who read, I believe that person because I find them to be authentic.
And they're
And
getting access to them in part because of the
That's
algorithms
right.
right, right.
that have been designed by the tech companies to micro target people who feel the same way about things or who thrive on conflict.
That's right.
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go
Since
ahead,
you're
Anya.
no, I thought you were finished.
I am.
Okay. So then the follow-up question to that is from a segmentation standpoint, like what ways are you seeing those segments then like come out? Or is that even a fair question yet? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so. I attended a conference today of political consultants, and one of the panels was about using influencers and social media's impact on politics. And so, just broadly, there are efforts, and this was a nonpartisan, they had Democrats and Republicans talking about this new information climate and what it means for political education. And part of what one of the panelists said that really resonated was that part of campaign strategies need to incorporate influencers that already have an audience. So they talked about an algorithm of their own, for example, that can first do a scraping, if you will, of social media. Say we're talking about people in the Inland Empire in San Bernardino or a neighborhood. They can do geo-targeting to figure out who the influencers are in that neighborhood with whatever demographic. I think they were looking for people that, listen to country music it was something really micro-targeted, but they can identify who the influencers are in that community who are talking about these issues that are resonant with the demographic. And then they can approach, just like folks approach, celebrities or candidates to endorse their campaign, they're approaching these influencers and saying, this is what we're doing. Would you be willing to, do a podcast or whatever it is, TikTok video on this issue? And so these are people who already have an audience and a following. They're authentic.
Right.
And so that's a way outside of the box, so to speak, to talk to folks. And I was really impressed by the data. They did some outreach on Medi-Cal enrollment, and they had a one-to-one match between how often people saw the ad with these influencers and the enrollment uptick in Medi-Cal.
And who did this research?
If you email me, I can look
Okay.
up the
Okay.
company.
I
I
will.
don't know if they're partisan or not, but they talked about a nonpartisan effort, which was the Medi-Cal enrollment.
Got it. Thank you so
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're gonna have time for about one more question. And Arna, you have that opportunity, and then we'll resume with the rest of the agenda in an abbreviated way. Arna? Arna, are you on mute? I thought I saw your hand raised. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr. Byerly, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much. My question, though, speaks to you talked about the three different groups that need to be approached about Yes on 50. And there's one group that I am being exposed to significantly. But I'm looking for some additional talking points. And that's the group that, like you said, they're going to be impacted, but they're being impacted now. So they don't see how a yes or a no even makes them any difference. I already have problems keeping a job. I'm already in that echelon of folks that can't find affordable housing. So why do I care whether I vote yes or no on 50? Can you got some talking points or just some things to kind of guide them in a way to do some research on their own or some anything to help them understand this is not just about the here and now?
Yeah, that excuse me. That's a good point. I don't have a top of mind talking point, directly for that, but I think there are some ways to engage. I mean, first we have to respect the agency
Okay.
of individuals.
Yep.
And so, many times, what we've heard is in the focus groups, people come out as so passionate and so, so strong, and that
Yep.
automatically sets up a wall,
Yep.
right? So we have to validate what's real in people's experience.
Yes.
Truth be told, Prop 50 passes, are you going to get a job, tomorrow?
Exactly. That's
No,
what they throw back at me. You're
no,
absolutely right.
and we have to be honest,
Yes.
right? No, you're not going to get a job. They may not be an immediate impact, but I'll tell you what, there was an immediate impact for the 300,000 Black women that lost their jobs within, I don't know, was it 2 months, 3 months of the president being elected? So it may not be today, but it just might be tomorrow.
Okay.
And so this, do what you want, right?
Right.
But this is some information I want to share with you. And we have Black women in California that have been directly impacted.
Yes.
Right. And it's caused a lot of pain. So there's data to share with folks and say, hey, you have to make up your own mind. And I think restoring the dignity and agency to those folks is important.
Because a lot of
if
them
we don't,
a
we're
lot of them already feel
disempowering
like
them.
they don't, they feel like they don't matter anyway. So why are you trying to convince me to get back in this rat race when
That's
this rat race for the past 20 years has really done nothing for me anyway?
That's right.
I'd rather stay here on the sideline and watch y'all bicker than jump in and try to vote and nothing changes anyway. So I just wanted to, like you say, it's all about agency, meeting them where they are and what they think their need and expectation is.
Right. And letting it go at the end of the day, right? Which is hard for us to do. If people see that you can walk away and say, hey, it's your choice, but this is what made a difference for me.
Yeah.
I think that's going to create more doors to opportunity for people to say, you know what? I'll think about that.
Okay.
And because if we don't, we're making people feel like they're stupid. We're making people feel like they don't know their own interests. We're making people feel like they're, being selfish or all of those negative things. We're further contributing to their marginalization. That deficit framework. We want to be asset building. We want to be empowering. How do you do that? You share information, you walk away, and you leave the door of opportunity open for people to ask you questions if they want more information.
Thank you so much. This was great. We need to take you on a road show.
All right. Well, listen, again, on behalf of the Empowerment Congress and the Government Reform and Accountability Working Group, we want to express our thanks and gratitude to Dr. Shakari Byerly for spending the past hour or so with us. This was such an engaging conversation that I kind of scrapped the agenda so that we could have the level of participation and expression of agency this forum provides those of us who tune in regularly. So again, thank you, Shakari, very much. Please give our regards to your lesser half,
He's the
Rodrigo.
man with the master plan. So
There you go.
don't undercut the brother, you know. We both empower one another. So I learned from the best, Dr. Ridley Thomas, Mr. Harris. It's been a pleasure being with you all, and I give honor where honor is due. You all were part of my early career, so I just thank you for your continued investment, and for the opportunity now to stand alongside you and share some of the information.
And I want to remind everyone that Eviderus is the name of the polling firm that is Black owned and operated and needs to be part of that directory if it's not already. Evitarus, Evitarus, and I put the link to the website there. I think there's also a link to background information about Shakari that I put in the chat. And I think you may be able to find her email address there as well. I think one of the Joannes was interested in reaching out to you directly to follow up. So again, thank you very much, Shakari. Appreciate it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It'll only be another 9 minutes, but